Did you watch any of the other stuff on Collision?
Well, you know I did, Brian, because we got to talk about it. Not only did we see the sublime of AEW, the MJF promo, but we also saw the ridiculous. And this is why that they're where they're at, and this is why they've been where they've been, despite spending, now we know, literally hundreds of millions of dollars. And why that is not going to basically substantially change. At Money in the Bank in Toronto, Canada, in the biggest indoor sports arena there. Well, at Sky Domes technically is indoor, but they had 20,000 fucking people in Toronto, sold out in a major North American city, and they brought out the biggest star of the last 20 years, John Cena, to announce his retirement tour, featuring stops at the major pay-per-views, including WrestleMania along the way. That was a big surprise. People didn't know he was going to be there. There was a surprise in South Haven, as with the South Haven surprise. A returning superstar came back to AEW to appear on their Collision program from South Haven, Mississippi, opposite Money in the Bank.
Hometown boy.
Hometown, but well, not even a hometown. But he's from Olive Branch. Not South Haven. He's from Olive Branch, Mississippi, but it's his home area. Our old friend, Dwarf Dong Sucker, Marko Stunt, reappeared. Oh my God. They brought him back to wrestle Jungle Jackoff because of their history together when it was Jurassic Express, a boy and his dinosaur and a smaller boy, or whatever their tagline was. And this highlights the differences, the reasons. WWE gives them John Cena. AEW gives them Dwarf Dong Sucker. And it's not like that this was years ago they were just starting up. There was never an excuse for using this fucking freak show bullshit. Might as well have had a trained chimpanzee. But even in the first year, there was no excuse for it. And it gave a negative perception of that company to a lot of people. A lot of people may forget now that the biggest audience they ever did for AEW Dynamite was the first show they were on. The very first night, first show they telecast. And a lot of people tuned in and saw some amateur hour bullshit and didn't come back. And or because this amateur hour bullshit, whether it be Marko Stunt or Jelly Nutella, or to this day, our little puppy Pockets, most people that might have sampled this looked at it, besides the original audience that knew what they were getting, they looked at it and they said, what the fuck? Is this a parody of WWE, or is this supposed to be some kind of kids show? Or is it cover? They had a legless man on their first pay-per-view in a battle royal. And anything that was the indie darling or the hot thing in rec centers across America, from Hickory, North Carolina to goddamn Ottumwa, Iowa, because they were all friends, because they all worked the same shows, because these modern mark promoters fly people in from all over the fucking country to be on their shows because they have a name on the internet. That's what they presented. And as a result, they got the perception with, as we've seen, they haven't increased the audience, they've decreased it. Because some of the people that were willing to give the amateur hour a shot, it got bored with it. And what else can you see done to a human being? So you can't. say what you want about even the WWE under Vince, but 98.5% of the people on the program, if they don't look like athletes, they look like some kind of celebrities. And if they don't look like an athlete, Sami Zayn, that's the gimmick of the guy that's the underdog that doesn't look like a goddamn athlete. He looks like a piece of shit just like you assholes in the stands. You can identify with that's the gimmick. In AEW, they got fucking 45 people with that gimmick. It's certainly not been a low rent in terms of expenditure, but AEW has had, and this is not a compliment, an indie look, a low budget look, a fucking outlaw feel, an amateurish, parody-ish, tongue-in-cheek element to some of this programming since they've been on the air. And Marko Stunt was one of the poster boys of that, and they've learned nothing. As I said, at least it's a benefit it's on because nobody saw it anyway. But just, they've learned nothing. They've learned nothing. Comment on this. I'm getting enraged.
I'll say the same things I said about the previous segment. This was a nice return to form. Marko Stunt looked great out there. This is another one of those things that should have been on Dynamite. If you're going to do it where people are going to see it. You get some payoff. It's the only time Jack Perry's ever going to look intimidating. Ever.
Yeah.
And it was buried on this show. And it, like you said, it's a long-term storyline thing if you really think about it. And it was on this show where they knew it was against the pay-per-view. They knew they were going to get killed. I don't know what else to say. It's not surprising. In the classic days of MJF doing a great promo, it was usually followed by some shitty, embarrassing thing right afterwards. And this was it. And the big benefit was just it didn't make Jack Perry look like a very, very, very skinny, in shape kid. And that's what he looks like. And that's part of the problem. You look at who are the champions.
Only because he was booked against fucking Tiny Tim.
That's
My
right.
God, put a fucking crutch under his arm and Bob Cratchit behind him, and he's Tiny fucking Tim.
You got to see Jack Perry do some of his power moves. You never get to see that. You'll never get to see it again either. So it was a very interesting match. But it exemplifies a lot of the problems with AEW, not just the general booking principles or lack thereof or the mindset behind things. Not just Marko Stunt being used, but Jack Perry. The response to everything with Punk, making him the scapegoat. If you watch the reaction, not just listen to it, but watch it, when he hit the ring, no one was reacting. He doesn't have that star quality, and Tony thinks he does. And it's one thing being a lot of these things and being a babyface who's going to get your ass kicked and have to find a way to win. It's another thing when all of a sudden you're the badass Jack Perry.
Well, yeah, because if you notice, as Jungle Boy, he had the blondish flowing locks, right? And the little loincloth thing, and you could beat him up and he could get sympathy because, you're beating up a young-looking small child. I don't know. But now he's got the dark hair and it's pulled back and he's grown the facial scuff and he still looks like he's 146 pounds. So as a heel, no. It's just he's play acting like his friends. And none of them can come to grips with the fact that they have a look for a certain thing and that's their ceiling and they ain't going past that.
Yeah, like his one big move is he smirks with a beard. That's it. Like, what else is he doing? That's the only thing you can think of. It's an acting thing.
Hey, at least some of his friends married their beards. So the point is that this is what. Now, see, get your mind out of there. But that's the thing is that besides this indie bubble level of fan that wants this preposterous shit, that's why they haven't grown, because they had items like this, the Marko Stunt or whatever, on the program, and And I'm sorry if people think, oh, Cornette just wants AEW to fail and go out of business because he didn't like him and they didn't give him a job. I need to talk to Stephen P. New. I know that you cannot disclose what is told to you when you're under an NDA, but since the NDA has been disclosed, could I sell copies of the NDA I signed with Tony Khan in 2018, like for charity? Because it doesn't contain any of the things that he told me. It just contains language telling me not to tell any of those things. We got to check on that.
They may want you to black out. I'm talking about this like it would legitimately happen from their end. They may want you to black out the LLC name because it's not one that is publicly known, really.
Well, all right, but besides that, we could, I can understand. We can redact some information, but my opinion has not changed. I was not against the idea of a second company rising like a phoenix from the ashes and challenging Vince McMahon's dominance in the wrestling landscape. I was, to say the least, pessimistic and actually outright, horse shit, at the thought that Tony Khan was going to book it and that these outlaw morons that he was dealing with were going to be able to fucking operate it. And my opinion has not changed, and many of those roosters have come home to roost. And other people, I was the only one that was honest about it. Some people probably called bullshit at the beginning, but nobody cared what they said. Other people didn't call bullshit at the beginning because they wanted to take some of Tony's dad's money. And then when they finished with that, then they called bullshit.
Just give me a 10-year contract and some Grey Goose. I'll say great things about you.
But don't be, none of you people out there, in or out of the business, be grumpy at me because my opinion and my commentary has not changed, and many of the things that I've said have turned out to be valid because Tony can't book and these assholes can't run a goddamn national wrestling company. And that's just the way, and this is an example of it, putting their friends who amount to trained chimpanzees, Marko Stunt and Orange Cassidy, on a program that's expected to be competing with the goddamn biggest multi-billion-dollar conglomeration of fucking wrestling and fighting and fussing and feuding that's ever been, and they counter-program with shit like that. There you go.
Well, a nice return from Marko Stunt.
That's why I stayed home.